The history of American open-wheel racing is a very complicated one, right down from the Indycar split between kart and the IRL. By the early 2000s, the tide was beginning to turn over to the IRL in terms of popularity, but before kart was officially dead, it put on perhaps the worst wet weather race of all time. A race that was so bad that it pretty much marked the end of kart as we knew it. This is the worst wet weather race. By the early 2000s, kart had lost multiple stars, whether it be through tragedy, moving to a different series, or through injury. By 2001, kart management was in complete disarray. They had to cancel a race at Texas because the drivers couldn't withstand the G-forces. They hadn't even tested there. Also, Driven was released the same weekend the race got canceled, so overall just a bad PR nightmare for kart. Both engine suppliers, Honda and Toyota, also had a ton of infighting going on that season over a pop valve issue, and also they just didn't like the way kart had handled the entire deal and decided they were going to be leaving after the 2002 season. So now we fast forward to October 27th, 2002, round 17 of 19, in Queensland, Australia at the Surfers Paradise Street Circuit. Kart had been running here since 1991, and this was looking to be another typical race here. Conditions were dry and clear for both practice and qualifying. Christine D'Amata, who was also the kart points leader, would end up scoring the pole. It was set to be another typical race on the Australian street circuit for kart, but come race morning, that would not be the case. Pushing the limits on a dry street circuit is one thing, but trying to do the same thing on an extremely wet one is a whole different story. The race was marred by extreme wet conditions, and some are even questioning if this 70-lap event should take place. Yes, that's right, this event is 70 laps, and as you can tell by the camera views, it is extremely wet and is in no condition to really go the full distance. But despite some drivers questioning if the race should even take place, the race has to go on as scheduled anyways. Why? Simply business. Even though kart had shrinking success in the United States up to this point, they still decided to do races internationally. Postponing the race was not an option due to international travel, limited TV window, and logistics of the street course circuit. Despite very wet conditions, the race went on as scheduled anyways.
Bruno Shakira seems to think it's a 2x2 start.
Making a big move up the inside. Looks like he's by Cristiano going down into one.
What a move by Bruno Shakira, and we have a huge
wreck.
accident on the front straightaway. Several cars have come together and the track is blocked. There it is.
Big accident. We saw cars flipping right in front of us as they came by.
Red
It's going to
flag.
be a red flag.
One of the players' cars, Adrian Fernandez. Looks like Tora Takagi.
Michel Jourdain.
I think that's the Takagi that's upside down.
That's Michael Andretti's onboard camera. There's Andretti.
Jimmy
That's
Vasser.
Jimmy Vasser's car upside down. Andretti coming to his aid. Here's another replay from our host broadcasters, Channel 10. Oh, Dominguez, the last car to arrive on the scene, scattering cars everywhere.
Just a battering ram.
Now look from Michael Andretti's onboard. That's how bad the visibility is.
You just can't see anything coming off a start like this. All the water in the air. We talked about that a little earlier, how difficult that is, and that's horrendous.
One of the worst starts you will ever see in a race, period. I get trying to put on an event for the fans and doing all this work, but driver safety should always be the most important thing. Clearly that race was not set to get going, and as a result, multiple drivers were injured. The initial wreck at the beginning ended up resulting in the injuries of Adrian Fernandez and Tora Takagi. 8 cars in total were involved in this accident, and race officials decided it was best to allow them to get their backups out and restart the event entirely. By the time the cleanup efforts are over and the pace laps are being ran, conditions seem to be a lot better than they were an hour prior. The good news is they're good enough to get a race restart. The bad news is that the race has restarted under caution.
Now we have the waving yellow flag, and the race begins.
So they actually waited this time. We actually heard a different story. They were going to go out first time by have the yellow at the official start, but now it has just become an official start of the race.
speed.
Green flag.
Cristiano Damata takes the green flag. Bruno Junqueira about 15 car lengths behind. The field well spaced and we are underway.
After the first 3 laps were under yellow, we finally got to green flag racing on lap 4. The first action of the day was Paul Tracy, doing Paul Tracy things, of course. The race was officially green from laps 4 to 10. Pole sitter and future champion of the series, Cristiano Damata, was in his own zip code. With the race restarting on lap 4, the conditions were only slightly improved, and by lap 10, they had gotten worse and worse. So much so that a second caution needed to come out. And as it turns out, this green flag stint from laps 4 to 10 would be the only green flag racing we would see all day.
Very difficult to see. You can see the rain light just up there, kind of off the left-hand side. That's what we were talking about earlier. That's about all you can see.
Full course caution for heavy rain with 9 laps complete, working the 10th of 50 in our revamped schedule. Very heavy rain on the backside now. Look at how it's coming down back there. Because this is lap 10, the pits are open, as is the first pit window.
Conditions are the worst they have been all day, but because of TV logistics and all that stuff, they still have to try and get this race in no matter what, whether it be through green flag racing or just running through caution laps. The absurdity of this race continues while under the caution laps again. Oriol Servia just straight up combusts into flames and is out of the race. The commentators keep showing us the radar, but it's very clear that this storm is not going to let up. The thing we have to remember though is that despite it being a caution, we still have a race technically going on. After leading the first 10 laps, Damata lost the lead to Bruno Junqueira. After leading 7 laps, he had to pit, and Damata ended up having the lead for another 10 laps from laps 19 to 29.
That it is a very, very difficult situation. Obviously, we're in a deal here where 36 is the number that we have to get to in order for this event to be an official event. So that's a number that seems to be at the tip of everyone's tongue right now.
After CART stated that 36 laps had to be ran for this race to be official, pretty much the strategy was to get out front by the time they called the race. Michael Andretti's team made a perfect call, and by the time they crossed the finish line, they think they have this race won. There was a problem though. When he crossed the finish line, there wasn't the yellow and checkered flags waving, still 2 yellow flags hanging from the flag stand. After a couple of laps of confusion, CART handed down the final verdict, which would actually turn out to be one of the worst motorsports calls in history.
I was about to say he has no choice. Actually, he does have a choice.
Conditions permitting.
So Michael will have to pit.
Absolute a cut. That is a fabricated finish.
41 laps.
41 laps.
I think we've basically been screwed by CART. The half distance they told us was 36 laps. There's no way you're ever going to restart this race. And our tactics worked. We won the race based on a 36 lap race. And CART's decided to change the race distance. Not very nice, in my opinion, whether they've done that.
This race in a perfect way mirrored the flaws of CART and why it was basically on the downward swing by 2002. Michael Andretti unfortunately had to pit, and a multitude of other cars did the same as well, expecting the race to be called after the halfway point. It was a stupid call because adding 5 extra laps was completely pointless. There was no chance in getting the race restarted under green under the current conditions. What ended up happening afterwards was the extra 5 laps cycled Mario Dominguez, a CART rookie, up to the front where he would score his first career CART win.
Well, let me put it this way. I would bet an awful lot of money that nobody picked Mario Dominguez to win his first race here today. But it appears that is exactly what he will do.
Race, buddy. Here, motherfucker.
Indeed.
This would be Mario Dominguez's first and only podium of the 2002 season. Quite a way to win your first race, but that wouldn't be the only victory of his career. The following season at Miami, he would score his second and final career win in CART. Obviously, in fans' minds, an asterisk would be placed right beside that first career win, so it's good to see him win a race straight up on speed. The 2002 Honda Indy 300 represented an all-time low for CART. The average race speed was just a little little over 55 miles per hour, marking this as one of the slowest races of all time. And this is also a perfect example of why all forms of motorsports should have a scheduled race distance if you can't reach the full one. All of those plethora of reasons are why I have this race as the worst wet weather race in motorsports history. And once again, that'll do it for another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.